So at this stage of the game, we have learned how to explicate a prompt. We have learned how to identify what questions are really being asked and brainstorm answers to those. We've learned how to use that brainstorming to develop a thesis statement that answers who or what, does what, when, where, why, and how. And one of those should have 3 answers. So I have that list, that specific 3 dimensions. The reason why those 3 dimensions are so important is because we're going to use them when we move into organizing our academic essays. So the primary way that we're going to use or learn how to use this year for organization is outlining. Now, those of you who had biology last year more than likely learned how to do outlining for chapter notes. When we use outlining for writing, it's a little bit different because we are coming up with the headings as opposed to another author having already given them to us. Okay? So we are taking basically what we're doing with outlining is
please report to the security office.
We are taking the information in our thesis statement and we're taking the information from our brainstorming and we're putting it in order so we can write our paragraphs more easily. Okay? So again, taking the information from the thesis statement, whoop, having a hard time typing today. Okay, so before I go into specific details about that, I want to go over a couple definitions. So when I outline something, I'm breaking it into sections and subsections. So there's a descending order, if you will, when I talk about outlining. So I go from a larger grouping or idea to a more specific, okay? So I'm going to actually add that right up there. So I'm organized into groups with broader headings. That have more specific ideas or details beneath it. Okay? So that is just a general way that we use outlining. So quick definition, there's a difference between Roman numerals and Arabic numbers, okay? The Roman numeral, by definition, is what the Roman people used to use instead of the kind of numbers that we used, okay? So when I think about Roman numerals, so if it was a Roman numeral compared to an Arabic numeral, which is what we use, the 1 for the Arabic is a capital I for us. Okay? I'm going to insert some more rows here so we can get you all the way up to 5. Okay? So if I want to make a 2 in a Roman numeral, it's 2 I's, but that would be comparable to a 2 in Arabic. Then we have 3. Then we have 4. Then we have 5. Okay? So the reason why I want you to understand the difference between the two is that when I use a Roman numeral, they're for the biggest ideas, okay? The Arabic numbers are for the much more specific ideas, okay? And similar to that, after a Roman numeral comes a capital letter, and then after a Arabic number would come a lowercase letter, So I might have a Roman numeral with a big idea. Then I have a smaller idea. Then I have, that should be a 1. Specific idea, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it moves from broad to specific as I break that down. So that's the basics of outlining. We are only going to be using Roman numerals and capital letters. We're not going to be getting super specific in our outline. So I'm actually going to delete that last line there because we're not going to go into that yet. So what our outline will look like is a Roman numeral, and next to the Roman numeral, I will use my thesis, okay? First item in the list. Okay, so remember, I have 3 dimensions in my thesis. There's a specific list I should be able to point at. My first Roman numeral will be the first item in that list. So if this is my thesis statement, then the first Roman numeral is going to be to communicate. Okay? I'm going to get more specific as we go. So after that, I'm going to have my first example. Okay? And I should have multiple examples. So we're going to go with 3 at least. Excuse me. Okay, and then I have my second item from the list in the thesis. And then I have example 1, example 2, example 3. Didn't mean to go all caps. All right, and then I have the third item from the list. And then I have example 1, example 2, and example 3. Okay, so your outline will have 3 Roman numerals and 3 capital letters. Now going back to the example, I'm going to show you what that looks like. So this is my thesis. Students must learn technology while in school with various devices to communicate with others, to learn new things, and to entertain themselves. So my first Roman numeral is to communicate. My first example, I go back to my brainstorming and read through all of that. My first example for me is a specific email to communicate with my administration and colleagues. My second example would be messaging with family and students. My third example would be Facebook to communicate with high school and college friends as well as former students. So basically what I've done with this whole process is I have set up what my paragraph will look like. Okay? This is going to be my first body paragraph. I already know what my topic sentence will be about, and we're going to talk more about this later, but I want you to understand why we're doing this. I already know my topic sentence is going to be about that Roman numeral, and I already have my examples planned out. So when I actually start drafting my paragraphs, it's going to be super easy to do that. Okay? The second one, same thing, to learn new things. That's going to be my second one. Second body paragraph, I give specific examples. YouTube, I used it to learn how to put in a new light fixture in my kitchen. Flipboard is an app that I use all the time to read articles about fitness. Twitter is another example. I read articles about education on Twitter. Okay? And then lastly, to entertain. So that would be my last body paragraph. And again, 3 specific examples, and those are all originally from my brainstorming up here. So you'll see that if I've done that brainstorming very well and very thoroughly, This outline will be very easy to put together. If my brainstorming wasn't that thorough, I'm going to have to go back and add to it. So your next step is going to be to take your thesis statement that you have refined, and you're going to create an outline based on that thesis statement and all of the brainstorming that you did to find your supporting details.